Just heard about this today, and what I've heard is that there was not a lot of heads up that this rate change was coming, and it's so drastic that it leaves us with kind of no choice. It's either we could pay it or we will not be able to pay it. The comparisons, to me, don't make sense either, because Chandler, Dysart, Hiley, Tempe, those districts or those areas are more developed compared to us. The rate of foreclosure in those districts or those areas are lower compared to us. So it's a very hard position. I will ask the board to reconsider and maybe table this, and we could talk about it the next, I don't know, the next time that the rates have to come up again. I know that it's almost due, and it doesn't give us a lot of time. We don't have a lot of choices, so it will really be courteous to reconsider the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Foschi, followed by Clint Augustine.
Good evening. I'm Chiri Fashi, and I also wanted to address the facilities fees, jumping from $2 per hour to $20 per hour. I do understand that $2 may be too low. $20 per hour does appear to be a huge difference. I also wanted to share with you the effect that as a church we have on the community. We have some students that come without their parents. They ride their bikes each Sunday to the church services, and of course we have children that come with their parents. So we are definitely a part of the community. This has hit us just at the time when our agreement is ending, and it is very difficult. As Jeanette said, it is going to really bring us to a decision. It's either a yes or a no for us if we can go forward. So I ask that you look at the value that is not represented in dollars and cents, and that's the community members that we do touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Next after us, Mr. Augustine, is Joanne Miller.
Yes, I'm Clint Augustine, 37168 West Leonessa Avenue in Maricopa. I'm the pastor of Living Water Church of the Nazarene, which currently meets at Maricopa Elementary School. Would like to just kind of say that, we were kind of shocked by all of a sudden knowing that this is normally the time where we're signing agreements for next year, and then finding out that the proposed increase is so incredibly high that it's not just $1 or $2, it's literally going to put us out. And it's a difficult thing. We understand that the times that the district's in, that we understand that there's a utility cost. We pay for a custodian. I see that that's pretty much stayed the same. We would like to kind of go back a couple of years, and at that point in time when this same topic came up, there was a group put together of the stakeholders, and we met, and that's how the current rates were decided. And at that time we were told this covers utilities, this covers the cost of replacing things and all of that. So it was a shock. It makes it look like, well, we just need some more money. And again, I would piggyback on what Chiri said, and all of the ways that we affect this community as a church that aren't represented in it as we also affect the district in ways that aren't represented in just a rent payment. We're active we have people on the PTO. We have sponsored the PTO. We helped with the carnival financially. We donated soccer balls and basketballs to the school. We did a teacher appreciation lunch. We did all kinds of other things. And we've been real supporters of Maricopa schools because we meet in one. And so when people in the church say, well, especially new people, where should we send our kids? I'm usually one of the first people to say, look, we're big supporters of MUSD, and we would ask that you keep your kids here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Joanne Miller, followed by Carrie and David Vargas.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Miller. I live at 17212 North Rosa Drive. I am here also as regards to the usage fees. We just found out about that because I go to Our Lady of Grace Catholic Church, and we rent out the classrooms at Maricopa Wells. Right now, we are paying $2 an hour. It goes up to $20 an hour. That's a 1,000% increase. You cannot justify that. I have another little complaint. I looked on your agenda online. That list of fees is not on there. Every item you have on here should have a backup that you can see the fees. We did not get notice of these fees in the mail, in any letter, and which should have happened. If the schools is going to charge this for us, at least you should give us a heads up. No heads up was given. The only reason we got it was because we got it from Patty Coutre, who happens to be in the office at Our Lady of Grace. Otherwise, we would not have known about it. There was an obscure article in one of the papers quite some time ago saying that was going to happen. We did not get information about it. That kind of an increase would stop us from using Maricopa Wells, and we would have to bring it back to where it is. I would say almost all of our children's parents pay taxes, which support the schools, and at least 90% of them go to the schools here. So I think another consideration needs to be in place for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Vargas is followed by Matthew R. Balgard.
Carrie and David Vargas, 45557 West Barbary Lane. I'm here to address you regarding my placement on tonight's personnel schedule. He has some documentation he's providing with you. First, you'll find the board agenda on April 25th where you approve my work agreement, and second, you'll find the minutes where that work agreement was confirmed with a 5-0 vote. After that, you'll see an email from the school secretary dated May 25th that shows that my work agreement was not available to, or was made available. After that, she was told it was not received, mine was not there. I emailed the certified specialist and my contract was not available. After that, you'll find documentation showing that I had a meeting with my immediate supervisor. There's a log in there that shows you the date of that conversation on May 21st. In that conversation, I was told that my contract was being held because decisions were being made about whether or not money would be available for that position, that money might be placed in a TASA or one of those other positions. Next, you will find a letter dated May 23rd that was mailed on June 1st and received June 2nd, stating that per board policy GDQA support staff reduction enforced, that I would not be receiving said work agreement. Next in that, you will see a copy of that board policy. Next in the packet, you'll see tonight's agenda listing me under the personnel schedule as a non-renewal. The last thing in our packet, you'll see a May 25th, 2011 agenda showing how RIFs are written and previously handled according to board policy and board agenda, which is not what you have on tonight's agenda. I've already moved on. I'm okay, you guys have to make tough decisions, and I understand that. However, I've already placed out job applications to other businesses, and I have listed that I have been RIFed according to this letter. And on tonight's agenda, you have me as a non-renewal. They are not the same thing. I am asking you, after 6 years of dedicated service to this district, both recognized in this letter and by the board president, that you go back and you make allowances and understand and clarification for this and make correction to the fact that this is what I was told and this is what should be done. Thank you for your service, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Vargas. Mr. Balgard, followed by Priscilla Santee.
Hi, my name is Ryan Balgard, and I live at 42477 West Cheyenne Drive, Maricopa, 85138. First, because I've never had the chance to do that, I'd like to say thank you for all of our sitting board members who do a job that most of us don't have the guts to do. So thank you for being willing to make hard decisions on all of our behalf. And I'm just saying this as a pastor in our town. We pray for this board individually on a weekly basis, and I know we're not the only one, so thank you so much for what you do. I too am here to comment just on the rate proposals that have been submitted to this board for review. It's my opinion that the proposed rates are very high, and the reason for that is because I've always been under the assumption it's been historically been the district's position to not make a profit for the use of its facilities, and I don't think that any of the users in our community have ever had really a question as to whether or not they would pay what the costs are incurred to the schools. I think there's always been the willingness on behalf of the renters to do that. I think the issue really has been none of us have ever really seen what the real costs are. So if we operate under a cost of use policy, we've never seen cost to find out what it actually costs to use those facilities. And so if that continues to be the position of the board in the district, we would like to be able to see those things. For us in particular, those proposed rates would go up for us in excess of 500%, and that's a big deal for us. Board policy states that reasonable use fees, it means an amount that is equal, at least equal to the cost of utilities, services, supplies, and/or personnel provided to the leasee pursuant to the terms of the lease. So for the question that I have, and I think a lot of people do have, is what are the actual costs? Can we determine what those are? And we'd love to be able to pay. And I would love personally just to have the chance to work with the district to really find a win-win solution to this on behalf of the community and the district. So if you need my help, I'd love to speak to that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Santee, followed by Anjoy Napolitano.
Hi, my name is Priscilla Santee. I am the Religious Education Director over at Our Lady of Grace, and we currently rented this last fall with 110 students, and our fee was about $120 a month. We were there for an hour and a half once a week. And with this rate increase, we would have to pay $200 a week or $800 a month. So now we're scrambling to see, do we go to Pathways? Do we find a church with classrooms? Because now we have upwards of possibly 500 students, and we are working out of a double-wide trailer over there. So I want to ask these people here to reconsider the rates, because it's really about the right thing to do. These are kids in our community, and they're very precious to us. And I promise you, we will find a place to put these kids if we can't do it in the school. I love working with the custodians over there. We've been a blessing to them, and they've been a blessing to us. The teachers in the classrooms that we teach in are so happy that we're there because we bless the classrooms. And a lot of the teachers hang around to talk to our kids. It's just good. It's the right thing to do. So we won't be able to do it any longer with that type of an increase. And I thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you. Ms. Napolitano.
Hello, my name is Anjoy Napolitano. I live at 20401 North Lemon Drop Drive, and I'm the Secretary for the Religious Education Program at Our Lady of Grace. I'd like to comment on the facility use fees. As you know, the church and classroom space at Our Lady of Grace is very limited. In order to accommodate our growing student population and religious education program, we rented classroom space at Maricopa Wells Middle Schools on Wednesday night. It was very successful, and the children and teachers had plenty of space to use for learning purposes. We were planning to rent classrooms this year on Monday and Wednesday until we were informed of the rate increase, possibly by 1,000%. I understand that the rates were compared to cities like Tempe and Chandler. The current population of Chandler is 238,604. There are 5 school districts that serve the residents, 3 faith-based schools, 5 post-secondary schools, and educational campuses. The current population of Dysart is somewhere around 20,000. There are 21 K-8 schools and 4 high schools. The population of Higley is 8,850 approximately, and there are 8 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 2 high schools. I don't believe there's a true comparison to justify the rental rate being equivalent to that of Chandler or the other 2 cities. Those cities have a significant choice of meeting space options, and the school district can be competitive with their rates, unlike the choices here in Maricopa. We're asking you to review the rate increase and structure it within the means of the Maricopa community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Please.
My name is Matt Garnett. I live at 40766 West Colby Drive here in Maricopa. I'm a member of Journey United Methodist Church. We currently release space at Maricopa Wells on Sunday morning. As many of the church congregations that have been represented here tonight just became aware this afternoon of the potential rate increase. A rate increase like this would essentially move us out of the school system. As we've just heard, our city is not the same size as our neighboring cities that we all strive to be and grow to our city to model after. Unfortunately, we can't jump right to where they are in 2012, and we have to model it based on the scale of our city. I'd recommend to the board that you consider an increase substantial to our neighborhoods, to our community, to where our schools and our churches can still work together to impact the community. Most recently, an example, our church provided a Change the World Sunday. The project we chose was to clean up the school space that we use. So we know students and middle schoolers in particular can be hard on a space, and even the best janitorial staff sometimes has trouble keeping up. So we made an impact in our school in that space by cleaning up and staying a couple hours late just to give them a boost on the start of the summer school after a long school year. It's these things that we would not be able to provide or necessarily have the opportunity to do if we were not meeting in the school system. So I ask you all to consider those rates, and even a $1 or $2 increase over a $20 increase would be valuable to the community and to the schools and physical plants as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garnett. Anyone else? Okay, thank you all. Item 3, summary of current events by superintendent. Dr. Conley?
Good evening, Governing Board, President Bartle, Vice President Anderson, Governing Board members. I'm Dr. Conley. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Maricopa Unified School District.
Dr. Conley, can I interrupt real quick?
You can.
Nobody died, guys, right? We're going to get this figured out, so everybody can breathe.
I know, I was going to, and I will go ahead and preface with the summary of current events. The one thing I love about our community is that we always can come together and come up with a resolution to our problems. And because of that community spirit, there's no doubt that all of the people that are in the room tonight, along with our administration and our leadership, governing board, that we can come up with a resolution because we're all in it for our students and our community. So with that said, I am going to go on to our current events. I do want to recognize our leadership team, and we have a few sparse members left after a grueling 2 weeks of professional development. I'm glad that they can actually still look me in the eye because I feel like I did some torture to them. But the torture, I believe, was in good faith, and I really believe that we came out of our professional development much better and really focused for this next year. So in our front row, we have Ms. Krista Barrett, assistant principal at the high school. Please stand up. You deserve to be recognized. Just stand up. Ms. June Salaya, high school principal. Yes, you have to stand up and you can remain standing. Joe Veras, who is our principal at Desert Wind. Rick Abel, principal at Maricopa Wells. I am going to introduce the back row. Someone is sitting in the back row being very silent. I haven't forgotten. And that is our, yeah, that seat right there that's taken. Assistant Principal Mr. Harris at the high school. Ms. Karen Honeycutt, we are all part of a leadership team, and without your expertise in the finance department, we would be lost without you. So thank you for your leadership this year. And I know, do I see someone? Oh, you're hiding over there. See, you're supposed to sit, and you have two more this meeting and one more before you have to sit up front. Ms. Eva Safronic, who is our current ELL coach and coordinator and future Santa Rosa principal.
And in walked in perfect timing, Mrs. Beckett, being recognized as our leadership team. She's been the acting principal for Santa Rosa. And our cabinet members, Dr. Marshall, Mr. Aaron Roush, Mr. Beckett, and Krista Roden. And the one thing that I would like to recognize is we have many principals that aren't here tonight, and one of those reasons is because we are spending hours interviewing late into the evenings. They're putting in well over 12 to 13 hours right now trying to get our staffing for this next year. And we have all, and especially our principals and our cabinet and our leadership team has put in hours, and oftentimes they go unrecognized. And so without all of you, I know our teachers and our students would not be where they are today without you, so you're very much appreciated. Going on to, of course, out of order in my style, the AIMS scores we did receive. They are embargoed until June the 27th, and until that time we aren't allowed to share those scores, except I will tell you that there are some pleasant surprises. And we're of course, as always with data, we're looking at areas that we can continue to strengthen, and that's where we're building our school improvement plans for this next year and our district improvement plan. So I will be sharing that information with you at a later date.
I'm sorry, Dr. Conley.
Yes.
What date are they embargoed till?
June the 27th. And I know that sometimes that date sometimes changes depending on the state and Pearson and if they've run into any reporting issues like they did last year. I do want to read a quick letter, and this is from ED3, and it is addressed to President Bartle and our school board members. On behalf of Electrical District Number 3 Board of Directors and District staff, please accept our sincere gratitude for the use of your boardroom and audio-visual facilities and staff at the district's first energy conservation workshop held on May the 22nd. We are very pleased that 38, which is I was fairly impressed. That's awesome. 38 of our customers participated in the event, and it was very well received. The participants were able to do some hands-on projects and were provided with many energy-saving products as well as the knowledge to use them. Again, thank you for allowing ED3 to use your facilities. We look forward to partnering on another workshop at some point in the near future, and that is Mr. William Stacy, who's the general manager. So. And that does conclude my summary of current events.
Thank you, Dr. Conley. Governing Board member activity reports.
President Bartle, I just have one quick comment. We did have one of our elementary PE teachers, Tracy Carey, out at Santa Cruz Elementary, who was nominated for PE Teacher of the Year. So I think that's pretty exciting and speaks volumes to our quality teachers. So I just wanted to, the Arizona Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, which I was still a part of. So it's, I'm just very proud of our teachers.
You have great teachers.
Anyone else?
High school graduation, yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Thank you. Information items and work study. Dr. Conley.
The first item are the dress code consistencies at our secondary schools. Mr. Veras, Ms. Celaya, and Ms. Wow, did I just call you Miss? Sorry, Ms. Celaya and Mr. Abel. Are you prepared to do that, or would you like me to pull that?
I think at this time it would be beneficial to pull it because we want to take one more look at it and present it to the community.
And with that said, we will go ahead and move the bullying policy and discipline for students to, along with the handbooks, to the June the 27th meeting. And the reason being, we did front load all of our professional development this year, and we've been in professional development for the last 2 weeks. We are working to provide consistency specifically at the secondary schools, meeting the secondary principals have met along with the assistant principals to provide consistencies not only in the dress codes, but also addressing our bullying policy, which also includes the cyberbullying policy, and consistent discipline for students within all of our schools. I will say that in reviewing the policies and having some conversations with Ms. Osborne, our attorney for the district, that the policies are right in place where they need to be. So thank you very much for that work. The work that we have to do is within the district administratively, then passing that information on to the teachers and the students and parents to provide that consistency across the board and really becoming a cohesive group that we have the same expectations across the board. I will tell you, when you put 2 administrators in the room and start talking about this, it'll be about a 30-minute conversation. When you put 9 of them in a room, and I will tell you, we tried to have this conversation with the 6 elementary principals, and I finally ended it about an hour and a half into it. And we know that there are so many I'll come up with the word. There's so many situations and so many exceptions to every single rule that when we look at it as an administrator, we've got to look at them objectively of what our community and what our parents, what we can enforce. And we have a very high level of expectations, and it's becoming cohesive and consistent as an administrative team with what is expected, so we can then verbalize those down through the schools and into the community. It's a huge conversation. And those conversations have started, and then it becomes an editing issue with the handbook, because as you know, you have your state policy, you have your state law, you have your district policy, and then you have your handbook. And that handbook really does guide so many of our decisions as administrators and as teachers. It's the one that we look at. So we have to make sure that we are fully prepared to do everything in that handbook, and also include things that we may not have done before. Questions about that one, since this is an information work study item?
No, I look forward to
All
seeing it.
right, wow. I did all the talking. Okay, the next item is...
Not bad for an item we're postponing.
What's that? Yeah, and yes, June the 27th. The override election schedule would then be the next bulleted item. In your packets, you did receive information for the election calendar of events, and I have had very lengthy conversations with Dr. Chestnut, both via email and on the phone, and this is one of those situations where I think he should have been Skyped in so he could enjoy this meeting, but it really is a conversation that he needs to be part of. This is an information item to you. And I do believe, as you see, that August the 8th is the last day that the board can adopt a resolution for the election. And I'm going to go ahead and verbalize some of the issues that we have before us. That is that we have lost our override, and it has not been supported by our community. And we have to be very cognizant that the community did not support this. And I don't usually do this. Being in the position that I've been in the last 6 months, it's very difficult to stand up here and put the game face on when we know sorry. Thanks. I'm not a crier, and it's your handkerchief of all things.
It's clean, I promise.
I know. And now it's going to get makeup on it, right? That we have teachers and we have staff members across the board and administrators that put hours into our students. And it gets really tiring. And I've been asked, do I personally support the override? I personally support it because I know how badly we need the money. But we cannot do it without the backing of the community. And it is a waste of our time and our conversations without it being a community effort. because we do not have the manpower or the energy to do it again.
Board, thoughts on the override?
I have to agree with Dr. Conley. I love this community. I love the schools. I've always been a supporter of any override because I know the importance of it, even before being on the board. But the community has told us over and over again that they're not going to support an override. And I agree with Dr. Conley. I don't think at this time it would be prudent, or we would be good stewards of our staff's time and our district's money to go after an override.
I agree. I mean, right now, the support is not there,
I also agree.
I think
unfortunately. I mean, that's the truth, but...
We wish we had it. We wish we had it. But we
and
don't.
that's, pardon me, my speech is the same as it was last year, which falls in line with that we have to have some rationale for doing it. This year, we get a different result versus what we've done in years past. If we're just going to do the same thing, and it's the same handful of people driving the train, then we're going to get the same results. So if we've got a plan, and we've got people who are going to support that plan, and we can justify that we've got enough time to do it, then let's do it. I mean, I don't think we've got some time to I don't even want to say rally the troops, because the troops need to come to us.
But yeah, we need to see
Okay,
this
if there's a
support from
line
the
out the
community.
door that says, hey, I'm going to support this because we need it, then great. Well, that's a different conversation. But if it's Ember or Aaron or Tori
It's not
that's
enough.
carrying the weight again, then that's really, to Dr. Conley's point, a waste of our money and a waste of our energy and our focus. So if there's anybody out there who also agrees with the incredible need we have for this funding, we got a couple weeks, so make yourself seen and rally your friends and your family and your colleagues, and give us a reason
Be to
to
our next
make an
board
investment
meeting.
in this. So.
And the conversations that I have had with Dr. Chestnut, he has successfully done this in 2 of the districts that he's been in. And he is coming in with a fresh energy that we really, like I said, do not have. There is a however. I also really believe in what Mr. Bartle stated, that with a very clear plan, and that clear plan would be salaries. It is to teachers and staff salaries, period, the end, because we have not received our steps and or an increase whatsoever. And we are losing out to the other districts. And that's the fact. That's where we are right now. And I have all the faith in our new leader coming in, that he will be able to successfully do this in our district, but it will be the board and the decision of a plan of action to do that.
And clearly, time is of the essence. So the last possible date, per the information you provided us, is August 8th.
That's correct.
Which means it's really our July meeting, middle of July. So we have one meeting between now and then on June 27th. So if there's some reason to do so, I would say let's have this as another discussion item on the 27th, and take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on that, I would like to see parents make this choice at a board meeting instead of staff. So I think, June 27th, parents, if you're listening,
Parents and community members. They
We
don't
need
have
to
to
hear
be
it.
parents.
Yeah.
They can be community members.
And I said this, and I'll say this time without crying, being in this position and really having to see the funding and the lack of funding and scraping the skeleton to what we already have, we need some help.
Everybody wins if our schools are great. And I know I'm preaching to a very biased audience here, but you don't have to be a teacher or a parent or a child to benefit from us having the resources we need to maximize our improvements. Anybody who's a homeowner, a taxpayer, a business owner, we all win by having great schools. So thank you, Dr. Conley, for bringing this up.
You are welcome. And on a much lighter note, and looking how we have been very fortunate in prioritizing and looking at what we absolutely have to keep moving forward for our students. And the next item is the updated on the blended learning program. I am going to have Mr. Veras and Mr. Abel come and give me a break, and they can take over.
Good evening, President Bartle, Vice President Anderson, Governing Board members. I'm Joe Veras, Principal at Desert Wind Middle School, here to give you an update on MUSD 20+1. First, we want to thank the board and the district leadership for the support of this program. We know it's going to be excellent, but we could not do it without them. Currently, we have purchased 32 Chromebooks. That is the cart and the management, and the additional Chromebooks that we'll need, that PO is being prepared as well. We've had over 185 families fill out interest forms. With that information, we are prepared to move forward with a lottery process. On June 18th, the lottery registration will open. On June 28th, we will have an informational meeting here in this room from 6 to 7 o'clock. We will have some of the computers, some of the teachers that are doing the blended learning as a pilot at Desert Wind's summer school program right now, plus some additional district staff to answer some questions and give the kids a little bit of a preview. On July 2nd will be the deadline to submit the completed lottery registration form. July 3rd, we will have our lottery, and by July 9th, we will have our lottery numbers selected on our district website. With the information that we've gained from the interest forms, we'll use that to distribute this information. We'll also do connected message and possibly use some of our local media. And we do want to acknowledge Ms. Robin Rice, Mr. Joseph Soltisic, and Mr. William Lang, who will be spearheading the teacher portion of this project. Any questions?
I have a question, President Bartle. Mr. Veras, how many in the program? We had 185 apply, but how many places are available?
We're looking for 100.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
That was easy.
The next two items were submitted in your packet, which are the April 2012 financial report and the fiscal year 2011 audit report. Questions on those, I'm sure that the business department could answer.
I have one quick question. I don't know who's going to answer this, whether it's Mr. Roush or... In the audit report, there were some deficiencies identified within the office, not just within the district office, as far as internal controls. Are we making plans are we on the path of making those suggested changes for the internal controls? Not just the business department, but HR and other departments. Are we on our way to making those suggested? So I don't know who wants to answer that.
Member Anderson, President Bartle, members of the Governing Board, Tom Beckett, Director of HR. We have had an audit from an outside source that came in and did it. It was at our request, and we have been working through the suggestions that were made by that representative. We have finalized those internal checks and balances that we were trying to place, and so yes, as we move forward in our department.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thanks.
All right. Next item was our 2006 bond monies projects, and I'm going to go ahead and read this just so those that are watching on our broadcast station would have this information as well. The 2006 bond monies projects that could include but are not limited to the MUSD ropes course, the expansion of Maricopa High School cafeteria, improvements to the CTE/Maricopa Online building, shade awnings at Maricopa Wells Middle School, shade structures at Pima Butte, Santa Cruz, and Santa Rosa, pilot energy enhancement at Maricopa Wells Middle School, and finish the Maricopa High School energy enhancements, carpet at the Pima Butte Elementary, life skills room at the Maricopa Elementary School. Some background information, and I will give you as much that I can, and I have cabinet members that have information as well. We have met with a group of administrators, staff members, and looked at the priorities that we have within each and every building and within the district. And when we look at that, we've come together and we've had to really prioritize what's best for our kids, community, any safety issues, and that is how we've had to prioritize. When you look at the actual monies that were left over, and Mr. Roush, please correct me on any information, it was a roughly anywhere from 1.4 to 1.6 million. Okay, thank you. 1.4. Okay, 1.4 million that we have total to put into our projects. And for those that are not in the finance arena of education, these monies can only specifically be used for capital projects, can never be used for teacher salaries, anything related to curriculum. It has to be capital projects within our buildings. So when we looked at that as well, these monies were also part of specific expansions related to, for instance, the high school and Maricopa Wells. I did provide, as well as, and I'm saying we did provide lots of information to you regarding these projects. One that I would like to draw your attention to would be, it has this spreadsheet with the prioritized costs. And I'm looking for it. Is it on your governing board docs? It is?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Where did you find it on your board docs?
It's not on the board docs, but it's in the packet, sorry.
It's not on the board
The
docs.
the board docs, all we have is the ropes
Ropes
course
course.
information. But the other one is the priority list for capital projects, and it's got the dollar figure amount.
Okay, I'm gonna have to borrow somebody's because I don't have it in my packet. I apologize.
That's okay. Here.
I'll borrow.
Oh.
When you look at the priority list for our capital projects, then the ropes course, which was originally installed at the high school, and Ms. Anderson, I know that you have information. Ms. Zelaya has a lot of information as well. And it's been a very interesting process through this, gaining community feedback from this as well. There is very fond memories associated with the ropes course, as well as what it served the community for. The police department, Ak-Chen, I know the fire department also has memories of this. It is an implementation and a phase-in project, but looking at the bulk of the amount, and please keep in mind that all of the amounts we have put at a higher level than what are anticipated, just to make sure that we could cover any unexpected costs. So when you look at that, it's anywhere from, and again, Mr. Roush, correct me, 10 to 15%? Is that how much above? The costs are anywhere from 10 to 15% projected higher.
This is an estimate, and the true cost is going to be what the bid is. So, again, just want to say we want to acknowledge our architect who is in the audience to Govening, and he's helped us with this. We've estimated the cost, and they are just estimates. We try to do a high estimate, but the true cost would be what the bid would come in at. So hopefully they're accurate. We want to estimate a little bit high, but we know that when we go out to bid, the true cost is going to be a little bit in that. That depends on our scope of work, obviously, what we put in to bid. So on any of these, if that makes sense. And then we can also put in a scope of work with alternatives to bid these also. So.
At this time, I am going to ask Mr. Brubaker to come on up. He is much more well-versed in this than I ever possibly could be. I'm passing it off to the expert, and it's much more eloquent when it comes to capital projects.
Mr. President, members of the board, I was asked to come here as a resource because I've had the privilege of working in the district for over 10 years. There's a lot of history. They were asking me to go back and recollect some of the decisions. Obviously, there's been some changes in district facilities teams with staff and so forth. And so when they came up with the priority list, they asked me to look at some of them just to see what I thought the cost might be. Some of them, obviously, I wasn't involved in. If you're going to recarpet, like Pima Butte and so forth, that they really didn't need any cost from me because they're well aware of what those items would cost. I think, and I don't know how much you really want from me tonight. I'll be more than happy to, to explain some of the things and answer any questions you might have. But I know that during the process of going through the bond back when it was passed, that when we broke the different projects down with elementaries and middle schools, obviously the high school had the biggest change because originally there was only, with the markups and the soft costs, about $31 million. We were able to go back to the State Facilities Board and convince them that it would be very prudent to provide some additional funds to remodel and do additions to the existing high school and not go and start a completely new high school. That particular high school then was broke into about 4 phases, working with McCarthy Construction. And each phase had a specific description, and we monitored each phase with dollar amounts signed to them because we only had a certain amount of money that we could work with, and we needed to stay within that. There were several projects that were discussed during the phases as we were building them that possibly they could be something that would either be done after the phases were completed, or there were some items that said, let's wait until we finish all 4 phases and then come back and do those. One of them in particular was the ropes course. The ropes course was always talked about at the very beginning. Originally, it was just to take what was already there and just move it. And so the contractor had a cost associated with that. It wasn't really enough to do, I think, what you're talking about doing today. And so, but the decision was, because the ropes course had the most flexibility, let's build the permanent buildings and not put in something that has flexibility and maybe would hinder us from building a permanent building or putting a ball field in or a retention, and then we would come back at the end of the phases and do the ropes course. The ropes course was never eliminated. The ropes course was just postponed. But I'm following directions from facilities groups and from the governing board, and there was never any further direction to go ahead and proceed at that time with the ropes course. Obviously, with things with assessed evaluations and so forth, not being able to sell bonds and so forth, the project kind of got put on hold. There were some other items, though, that were also talked about, and there was things like possibly maybe expanding and giving some more shade area or something for the cafeteria. If you also remember, the existing gym was one item that was talked about, of possibly putting it on the air conditioning system. When we built the central plant has the capacity to be able to put that gym on if you want to in the future. And so we designed that to be able to take care of that. So there was a number of things, I think, I don't know if they put it in your packet, some of the list of some of the other items and so forth. Yeah. Some of them just kind of went by the wayside. Obviously, like add some additional tennis courts. You put the 5 in. They were talking about possibly putting some more up where the old bus barn and so forth was located. That kind of fell off from the design team, the facilities team, and obviously now you have a maintenance facility up in that location. So I'm here as a resource for you if you have any questions or anything further you'd like to ask me.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. I appreciate it. So this fits in, and I don't know, it's probably an everybody question. My biggest concern is I was here in '06, and I helped pass the bond in '06, and actually we started the process in '05. So I just want to make sure that we're following through and keeping our word to the public, that we're doing what we said we were going to do with that money. So that's my concern. So I appreciate I know you went back through your records and looked some of that stuff up, and I appreciate that.
To that end, one of the questions I have is, As it relates to the ropes course, there was allocated back in 2006, we want to make sure that we accounted for that because the voters said, we told the commitment to the voters, well, there was an allocation of $25,000 for that. In this plan, it's 10 times that. It's $250,000. So what was our commitment and how do we go about prioritizing the
Maybe that
use
would
of
be
these
it.
funds?
Mrs. Lai.
Ms. Lai,
And I
would you
can
like to
comment on
answer
that,
that one? And I can give pieces to that one, but
Good evening, President Bartle and members of the Governing Board. My understanding, and I kind of came on board as a teacher at that time and when the facility was being built, the $25,000 at the time was for moving the current course that they had. And in that process of the last 4 years, things have become outdated and not really usable, and there become safety issues with it. So now when we go back and revisit this between the location and the equipment that's needed to put that ropes course in is what has accounted for the increase in fund. To answer your question, Ms. Anderson, the school, I know the high school and its community members, that is the teachers that have been there and the kids that have been there, in the research that I've done are very supportive of that because it's a huge piece of the school that was missing, and I know that they're very supportive of that. I would recommend, as we continue to talk about this, to maybe in the future on another agenda item, I think the community, I think as a school board, and I think from new teachers that are coming just into my school, because I'll have several new ones, I would really like to have an agenda item in the future to do a presentation so that we can all learn a little bit more about what this is. Right now I have a lot of background information. I have the diagrams and the information that I've read, but I think that it would be worth our time to really explain to the community what we're doing and why, because right now it just sounds like something that we're finishing when it's really quite an interesting expansion for not just the school, but for the whole community.
And Mrs. Slice, I would like to, President Bartle, request that in the second meeting in August, when Dr. Chestnut's here as a board member doing a lot of these presentations, I think that to do justice, that needs to be a formal presentation with some history and some costs. I will say it doesn't have to cost this much. The original $25,000 was never passed on. That was not even, that figure was, that the first I heard of it was, recently. So it is what it is. We're here right now, and I think we need to make sure that we are being accountable. The money is being spent wisely, so I think that a presentation, I would like to request it in the second board meeting in August if we can do that.
I'm willing to do that if that's what the board desires.
You mentioned this being such a great resource for the community, and in particular, we talked about police and fire being beneficiaries of this. What is the projected usage of this ropes course, and is there an opportunity for us to get participation from those other beneficiaries to help make this happen?
Absolutely. I think if we're going to do a presentation in August, I think that's what we would look for, is the folks and all the community members, whether it's fire, police, Ak-Chin, there was some other leadership camps, and then also those teachers that were in the school that utilized that at the time would be willing to come to the table and have all those conversations to bring forth to you how that was utilized within the community. I don't have the answer for you right now. I know that it was used in leadership capacity. It was used also, in math curriculum and science curriculum. There was a lot of training that went on with Ak-Chin and, like I said, police and fire for their leadership training. I know that we anticipate using it for our student council leadership training in addition to staff member leadership training. It would be a pretty cool thing to do. Our retreat could actually be here.
It seems like, what are the reasons why we would wait till the end of August? It seems like this is a great opportunity for us, and we should execute as soon as possible.
I think it's going to take a little bit of time. One, to be really quite honest, for me to get everybody together that's not on vacations at this time, my staff is on vacation. I personally would like to take one.
No vacations.
But to get the people together, I think there's some other entities too, the folks that already have this in Safford, and there's some experts that I think it's going to take more than just, a week or two to get them together and put that presentation forth. And Mr. Chestnut, Dr. Chestnut doesn't come on board until July 1 anyway.
We only have one board meeting in July.
Oh, okay.
Sure. But some of these, like one of these items is, and I don't know what the construction timetable is, but one of them in particular is the pilot energy enhancement program, right? Every day that goes by that we don't implement that, it costs us more money. Same with the benefit of having shade in August and September when these kids are here. So can we parcel this out and talk about the ropes course, you know, once you've got your presentation together, but at least get the ball rolling on these other items? What are the next steps that you need from the board in order to move forward with these investments?
What we really need to do is have some direction from you guys as well. And what we can do is go through this, and I'm planning on going through each and every one of these to answer questions, because it is a list of 8 different projects. And I don't foresee a reason why we could not piece it out. Do you foresee a reason why we couldn't do that, Mr. Roush? Yes.
Good evening, board members. Aaron Roush, Director of Risk Services. As you see, we prioritized as an administrative group 1 through 8. The list has kind of a description of, for instance, of each issue, and then we also put into the comments of how we would go about doing this. For instance, we've researched the ropes course, and the ropes course would, per purchasing criteria of the state of Arizona, we'd have to go to the school board and ask for a request for proposal. We'd have a scope of work, you'd give us the authority to go bid it, and then come back with the bids. We would have those available and review those and come back and award a bid through a board process. The number 2, energy enhancements, it's already under a bid contract. So if we had the go-ahead, we can just access a pre-bid contract already that's...
And that's the question. Could we go through each one of these and say,
Right.
go forth?
We don't need to do all 8 at once.
all
We
at
can say, we want to do 2, 4, and 6 today,
Right.
and we'll talk about
Okay.
1, 3, 5, 7.
Well, each one of them
But
has...
you need to go to request for proposal first.
On some-
We
on
need to
some.
give you direction to do that first.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. On some of these, they're under a bid already, and some of these, they're
Right, there's a
RFP,
process.
right.
So it's
Yes.
not all for one. I mean, if you don't take one, then we can't do
Right.
any of them.
Right.
What he's saying is, yes, we can.
Do
We
one
can
at a
do
time.
one at a time.
Yes.
Thank you.
My only comment to that would be, President Bartle, as long as we don't get to the end and go, oh, sorry, the money's gone, we can't do the other, you know,
ropes course,
the things, or the HVAC on the old gym. I mean, those were original things in the bond. So as long as we don't get to the end, you know, spend the money from the pocket, and all of a sudden the pocket's empty.
And I respect that completely. As you look through these, so I'm going to go ahead and go through these so everyone knows what we're talking about. Ropes course, we've already talked about. The second...
Dr. Colleen, before you go, sorry.
You're fine.
I've got one more broad-based question
Okay.
for you. You guys categorize these as 1, 2, or 3. 1 being immediate safety or health issue, 2 being immediate but not important, and 3 being not immediate. Some of these items on the immediate safety or health issue, speaker, ropes course, solar panels, how are those health and safety issues? What was the thought process behind those being a 1 versus in some other category?
It comes back to honestly what Ms. Anderson stated as far as what some of the items were on the 2006 tentative list that Mr. Brubaker provided to us. And as we looked at that, again, the process that we did, we came and we looked at that list first. And just as an informational, here's what was on this bulleted list that, and again, it wasn't on the actual bond verbiage, but it was in discussions when we talked with the community. So that was the notes that he had had. Then once we looked at those, the next thing we did is we opened it up to our administration, and they know their facilities and their buildings much better than anyone else would. And they said, here are some immediate safety and or health issues that we have to take care of. The other thing that we looked at is in our state of no money, We looked at items that could tentatively increase our efficiency while bringing some possibilities of funding back into our district. And because if for instance, your ropes course was on that list, it is a cost, and we have to be very cognizant with all of these, any future related projected cost. For instance, making sure that when it is rented out, and I'm going to say this very delicately, giving our crowd tonight, looking at any type of facility use fee structure, how that would be handled, because we do have to have someone that's highly trained in that on staff, and we would have to pay them. So there are lots of items that we can't jump into without thinking through completely. And that is said with all of these. So,
So priority one is safety and health, but it's also items that were grandfathered in from 2006, and it's also items that have a direct economic impact on the district.
yes,
Okay.
and requested from the community. So it has been full fold of that.
So can we, all of these projects, we can't do anything until we get an RFP? Except for the energy controls, right.
No, some of them are already on bid.
Like, use your mic.
As I listed in that, some of them you can already bid. There's carpet that there's existing contracts out for. It just depends. There's 3 or 4 consortium bids out there. If we can access a bid, we try to do that because that's already the lowest price. If not, then we have to go through the process for the state of Arizona over so much dollar amount. We have to go through the procurement process of asking the board to approve the scope, approve us going for bid, and then put it out to bid, and then come back and ask for approval. So it just depends on the item, and that's what I listed in the.
So each individual item, if we decided to move, if we wanted to move forward with any of these items, they would have to appear on another agenda as an action item, and then we could move forward with it.
That is correct, Ms. Coutre.
So can we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it. Now, are you ready for me to go
Please.
through each one? Okay, the next one is our energy enhancements. And we brought this to the board last meeting, and it was requested that we look at doing a pilot on a much smaller scale to really see what the guaranteed amount would be to come back. So when we looked at that, Maricopa High School is 80% complete, so we have about 20% left to finish that project. Then we looked at the school that we really could get some good data and information from, and that would be Maricopa Wells Middle School. So that is the reasons that we've put to install the energy enhancement controls at Maricopa Wells Middle School and then finish the project at Maricopa High School. And when you look at that, the projected amount would be $150,000 up front, and it looks like anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 would be brought back into the district each year thereafter for those. And so you're looking at approximately within 3 to 4 years having a return on your money. And honestly, once it's installed after the first year, we'll be able to bring some of that data back and have a much better projected idea for you.
Because it is just projected.
Yes.
So the reason why we're doing this, a third of this instead of all of it, is because, why, again, is to make, because we don't believe the case studies and the history of other districts. We want to make sure ours is.
Because the chunk of money that was going to be spent there was not significant data and to prove that this is exactly what we would be getting back in return. And like we do anything else with curriculum or anything else, we try a pilot program first, see how it works, fix it if it needs to be fixed, and move on forward, and then implement it if it's working. That's what we've done for our teacher evaluations. That's what we're doing for our blended learning. We should take that same concept when we're looking at spending big dollar amounts on these projects. And I think that, this is great, having a pilot program, then watching when it comes back and seeing that, yes, this is what we can actually realize as savings. Do we want to move forward then with the other school sites? Do we have the funds to move forward with the other school sites? Looking at this list of these priorities of this money's left for the bond, This is where we need to put our priorities right now. This is what the community, what the teachers, what the administrators have said we need to do. And I think we need to focus on this, but I think it's good that we do this energy, and the energy efficient program was just for the HVAC. It did not include lighting. It did not include security. We're still going to have personnel go out, unlock the schools, turn off the lights. So, I mean, this is just a beginning, and this is a good beginning.
I've heard one or two comments about funding being a really important issue too, though, and this is the only item that would provide us a direct return on our investment.
But we don't know what that direct return is going to be.
But we talked about this at the last board meeting, and we've already voted it down.
Right, well, that's,
Okay, so we can move.
we're talking about it again, right?
But it's not up for discussion.
It is, it's an information item, it's for discussion. So, my question is then, if the company's expertise and what they've experienced in other districts is not relevant, so we need to prove to ourselves with our electric company and that they can perform as they say with our district, and then we would roll that out to the rest of the school sites.
Well, they stated that there was all kinds of issues with ducts. They couldn't prove, they didn't know that could be with the structure when it was constructed and blah, 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 and those kinds of things. So it's, am I being heard?
I think the duct issue was in response to Mrs. Goutret's question about the noise in one or two of the classrooms at the high school.
Noise and temperature control in separate pod areas. So you'd have one classroom that would be fine, another classroom would be freezing and wearing your winter coats, and another classroom where you could be dressed for the beach. So...
And we can't compare ourselves to another district. We don't know. I mean, it's great, and I believe in that data, but I agree with the rest of the board in the way that we should try moving this forward in a smaller amount of money and see just where it's going to go. This will be a good way to find out what the kinks are, what kind of issues there may be with whatever the case may be with this and this energy enhancement program. And rather than going in and just, it's better to go in kind of like with the scalpel versus...
Can I point out that it will take, when we do this, whenever we put that energy enhancement in, and it can be lights, this whole system can do lights, and we can tie it into security and all those type of things. But it's going to take a whole year after that to get the baseline. You put it in, then and throughout that whole thing, we know where our energy costs are among the highest in the state. So I just want to point that out.
Mr. Roush, what additional costs, if any, would we incur by piecemealing that project instead of doing it at once?
Well, so it's hard to... Can you clarify your question, please?
Yes, I'm presuming that the rate that we were offered in their proposal was based on, basically we got a volume discount, right? If we did 5 buildings, is the cost of doing one building 1/5 of that, or does it matter?
Each of those buildings was bid on a consortium bid, so there's, so no, there's not a volume bid. So each building is based on a...
The cost is the cost.
Cost is the cost.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And there again, we were estimating, if we did all buildings, somewhere around $200,000 or more of energy savings. And if we do 1/7 of that, it's going to be quite a bit less, in the $25,000, $30,000 range. So that's probably what we're going to see.
Thank you.
Can we move on, please?
Any other comments or questions on number 2? Dr. Conley?
The outside eating area and the gym and the bathrooms at Maricopa High School, right now, and Ms. Zelaya, please make sure that you give me the correct information. You have a capacity for about 519, and what happens is that totally drives your high school schedule because you have 1,600 students and you only have capacity to seat 519 of them. So what's best for kids? We need to look at what's best for kids is to maximize our scheduling and our teachers, and that would be to increase the capacity of how quickly our food services can serve our students, and that would increase it to 750 students. And that would be both working with the outside, looking at what's available in the outside seating areas, and also within, am I correct? No, I'm not correct. She's
Just
shaking her head.
outside.
Ms. Lai, please come up. The person who walks and lives in her building.
To expand the capacity of the cafeteria, it currently is at 519, as Dr. Conley said. We need to increase that capacity to 750 so that we can accommodate fewer lunches because we're impacting our entire schedule. We did look at initially trying to increase the interior space, but that's more costly. So if we can build a patio outside and accommodate students that way with an outside structure of shade and so forth, that's going to be efficient for us because the kids go outside. It's never snowing so much here. So they do go outside and they're happy to do that, but they would like, a shade structure, and it would just be really, really helpful. The problem we have right now is 4 lunches. When you have 4 lunches, you have scheduling problems. And if I wanted to go to 3 lunches right now, I would have to interrupt one class of 55 minutes, teach them for a half an hour, let them go to lunch, and then come back for a half an hour. If you were here 5 years ago, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago, that was the case. And I cannot, in good conscience, interrupt a 55-minute class period with a lunch and divide 55 minutes into, less than 30 into 2 segments. There's not effective instruction that way. So now we have to have that 4-lunch schedule because we can't be within code or compliance with fire, unless we have an increased capacity.
I have a question about that space. So
Yeah.
you're looking at seating possibly over 200 plus kids outside. In the summertime, even with the shade structure, it's still hot. Are we putting up misters, any type of cooling? I mean,
Yeah.
because you don't want, the kids aren't going to go sit outside if they're going to be miserable.
It's interesting how that capacity is done. It's an in and out capacity. So they may all be in there, and what we have found in looking at our kids, they go outside no matter how hot it is.
Okay.
They just want a place to sit, and they
Okay.
want shade. And I agree with you. If I could put misters out there, that would be fabulous. But, in terms of think about the other part of this in that if we can do it the way we looked at it for having a snack area too, so that you have snack windows now, or, service windows
Okay.
in there, you're accommodating everyone faster. As far as the conversation about any kind of misters or anything, we haven't had that conversation, to be honest with you, but I haven't seen it as an issue. It's not one of the complaints I get from kids. I get,
No shade.
no shade.
And no place to sit. Okay.
And wouldn't that finish the high school projects that it was supposed to finish? And probably Mr. Brubaker or somebody, that was part of the...
Mr. President, members of the board, just real quick, I compared the square footage of your interior dining to another campus that we've done, same size campus, total campus. Your square footage is just a little bit larger than that particular campus, but what they have that you don't have is the outdoor covered dining space. And they had over 4,500 square feet of covered outdoor space. And so obviously you can build that, as was just mentioned, you can build that a lot cheaper than trying to build interior space. And you would still be, very comparable to a lot of the larger high schools in the valley. You just need that outdoor dining space to give and covered to give you that capacity. By doing that, you could increase that capacity from that 500 at 7 to about 250 to give you a total of 750. So,
What are the timelines we need to be cognizant of from a construction standpoint to mitigate the impact on kids, and also from a scheduling standpoint to make sure that Ms. Lai and her team knows that we're moving in that direction?
well, when you look at something like that, obviously it's going to disrupt the campus because you would want to place it in proximity to the cafeteria. It could even be in that, maybe part of that interior courtyard space. Because what we also found is that the students not only used it for dining, but then just during just basic campus life, they would stop there, they would use the benches, they would get underneath the shade. So trying to build something like that during the school year might be difficult. It might be something that you'd have to get everything put together, get ready, so as soon as the summer comes, you can hit it right away, be able, you could construct something like that over the summer. you'd have some difficulties probably doing it during the school year.
How much time would it take?
You probably put up something like that in about 3 months to two or 3 months. You could fit it in the summer.
Okay, so would the recommendation be then that we do this a year from now?
Or I haven't had a chance to even sit down and talk with staff and work with your principals to see, where it's going to go first of all, and then if there's a way of being able to maybe barricade it off. But I just know that internally, trying to build something like this, you're talking about something that's roughly about 75 foot square. I mean, it's a pretty good sized space to try to get 250 students be able to sit at dining tables or outdoor benches to sit in there. So
Okay.
it's pretty good sized space.
Well, one thing for you guys to take into consideration is if we can do it partially during break and partially interfere with school in session, or if we're going to wait until next summer, then that would have a bearing on our decision on whether to move forward on this today. If we're not going to construct in, for 10 or 11 months, we can sit on it.
Just from a scheduling standpoint and master scheduling and just looking at the school year, it's not something that I foresee being able to happen immediately. The sheet that you received does have priorities, and the priority number 1 at the high school would be the ropes course, and then I believe this is down at number 3 because it does need to be in consideration of a summertime construction. We already have our master schedule and our times and our bells, and unless something is changing that, I would recommend that would happen in the summer.
Thanks. Any other questions on number 3?
No, we just, at the end, are we going to ask them to we're going to direct them to just go to bid on this stuff, or? Okay.
I think that would probably be the cleanest way to do that. The shade awnings at Maricopa Wells Middle School. Anyone that has been to Maricopa Wells Middle School knows that it's somewhat desolate, and they desperately need shade. When you look, it is desolate. But the beautification project did make it very lovely, so thank you, Mr. Abel.
Beautifully desolate.
Beautifully desolate. Okay, so insert foot in mouth. If you look at the building, there are already somewhat of a structure there that the awnings were supposed to have been mounted to.
Right.
And they were painted over to try to blend in and camouflage. And it is what it is, and it is now time to get our children some shade. And when we look at energy efficiency, I think this will help with the energy efficiency as well at Maricopa Wells Middle School.
And that would finish that project, right?
To my understanding.
That's a good concept.
Mr. Brubaker, is this something that can be done in advance of the school year? Or what's the construction timetable and the process for?
There's actually a twist to that project. And by the way, I need to, for the record, I was not the architect on that particular campus. It was the only one that I did not do.
I know.
But I did get to put the gym there. But yes, there are already weld plates there to add awnings. To be honest with you, I don't think that and we talked about this in the facilities group, you would not be, they would not do the job that you're wanting to have happen there. And so I know that they were looking at some other options of actually doing some shade canopy, something maybe in between the buildings, some other things that you'd be much happier with than just basically hanging an eyebrow over top of the windows or over top of a door. And so really I think that cost and that description was deviating from the original design of that particular campus for that. But would it finish that off? I think it would finish off in a way of giving you some covered area for circulation and for students to gather, and not just walking right out of the door, right out to the elements. So.
And from a timing perspective, best guess?
That, if you start, I know they were kicking around ideas of maybe doing a canvas type awnings and so forth. I mean, those can be done very quick. You could almost come in and do maybe sections of it during breaks, like maybe a fall break, spring break, winter break, those type of things. You probably couldn't do it all, but that you could phase that in. And that's a particular vendor that specializes just in things like that, and you could literally bid that and take care of that as a completely separate contract.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Roush, it says it's already under bid contract. Can you explain, are you just waiting for us to say go forward, or?
Our maintenance team has met with the contractor actually out on the site, and yes, it's already one of those pre-bid items So, yeah, it's just that we have to then define kind of the scope of work, and, yeah, go ahead with that. And we did not ask him or ask them, the timing of that, but we can go back and ask the timing of that. And maybe it's something that they can do on the weekends, or, we just did not ask that question. Thank you.
Okay.
Numero 5.
Okay. Shade structures at Santa Cruz and Pima Butte, and that would be to install the shade structures at those two sites. I'm going to refer again to Mr. Brubaker. The question, well, and here's the question I had. We originally asked if since we are combining two structures, if it could possibly be a reduction of the cost.
To combine that?
Yes.
That was my question too, so thank you.
Again, we already bid those, Doc. It's already pre-bid, and the bid is what it is. That's going to be the cost of the projects.
But that was a reduction of somewhat of a percentage saved because we were getting two instead of just one. No?
I don't think so. I think
Okay,
that's
I'm
that's the estimated cost from a contractor
Okay.
on a bid.
All right. Item number 6 are the restrooms at the Maricopa High School CTE building. Next.
The CTE building that's out there by the football field currently is accommodating a CTE program and the Maricopa online program. Currently, it's a very interesting restroom in there. It was kind of a combination restroom, janitorial kind of closet, and when we put kids in there, we had to take the janitorial piece out and leave the restroom piece. Right now, it's not very adequate for the number of people going in and out of there. It's a problem. So we're in desperate need as we continue to look at that building and continuing to grow the Maricopa online program, which it's already potentially doubled in 1 year. We have to have more than that one restroom. And that one restroom happens to sit in the middle of an office, and where you have to have documents. So we have to rework that to be in compliant with FERPA rules, and just to accommodate both genders and have some restrooms. So that's really what that is all about. And I talked with, and Don will probably come up again in a minute because, there were some great ideas about how that looked and what that might look like. So it's a little thing, but a restroom back there that really kind of works would be great.
Can I just comment on that? I know that it's been talked about since '04 and '05 when we first put that building up to house the ag classes that were going on. So I know that it's been talked about for a very long time, and I know it's been on that list for a very long time.
Any other comments on item 6?
Again, would this be a project that would have to be put like next summer? I mean, is this, sorry, Don.
For the record, I did design that particular building.
I remember.
But the original design was
Did we
not-
save our receipt?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the use of that building has
Yes.
changed, and so
Yes.
this is what we're looking at. If you remember also, we had those older, those very nice restrooms that were
Oh, yes.
outside there for the football field that obviously went away. And so this would be something that probably would have to look at, because it would obviously disrupt. But again, we haven't talked specifically where they'd be located. Is it something that they go back to where they are right now? Is it something maybe that'd be attached somewhere around the perimeter of the building? If you start looking at that, then maybe the scheduling could be a little bit more flexible. And so all I did was take and look at and say, if we put in a boys and a girls or a men's and a women's, 2 fixtures on each one, it'd be roughly this amount of square footage, roughly this amount of cost. And so that's how we came up with that.
Thank you. Number 7.
Carpeting at Pima Butte, very self-explanatory. It's a safety issue. And number 8 is renovate and expand rooms at Maricopa Elementary School to accommodate our independent life skills program. Dr. Marshall can answer any questions you may have regarding that one.
I have one. With the expansion then, we would be eliminating some of the other classrooms over there then?
No, we would actually, good evening, board members. We would actually be flip-flopping our OT-PT room and our speech and language pathology center with the 2 rooms that are currently being used for our life skills, or our independent skills, which houses our students with the most significant and severe and profound disabilities. What we're having to do now is the students are serviced in one room, and all of the equipment in order to provide their therapies and/or their ambulation around the school is in another room. And so with this, we would basically knock down a wall,
Okay.
have 2 separate restroom facilities, utilizing the restrooms that are already there, but just expand them a little bit to accommodate our K through 12 program, because honestly, Mrs. Doan does service about 8 to 9 students projected next year with those significant disabilities, and so we're having, it's a safety hazard when we have a lot of those students in those classrooms with some of that equipment. And so it's kind of a trade-off. We're not losing classroom space, and in working with Ms. Reese last year, we were able to figure out where the best fit would be. Plus, it is, part of the renovation would be to have a door opening into that hallway, which is directly across from the nurse's office, because we do have students who require tube feedings and sometimes medications that are done through a central line to where the nurse then is more easily accessible.
Okay, thank you.
Comments and questions, thoughts, board about next steps and moving forward? Yes, Ms. Osborne.
It's not an
Jill,
action item.
Mike.
You- Can you use your mic right there? It's not an action item. Yes.
Information item.
Yes, we can't make any decisions. Right.
Correct. Right, we can provide feedback to staff, though, correct? Okay. So any additional feedback for staff?
No, I think we've given it, but the ones that are,
My feedback is that we talked about the ropes course, and we're going to learn more about that soon. The other items, the ones that we can accomplish in the next 6 months, you might bring that back to the board for blessing as necessary. Ones that we can't accomplish until 2013 calendar year, I would say we sit on and not encumber ourselves in terms of allocating those funds at this juncture.
so they need to come back as an action item.
Yep, I will bring
Okay.
those back as an action item with the items that we can accomplish within the next
Okay.
6 months. Perfect.
Thank you, Dr. Conley.
And to clarify for that, because I am not going to be here to prepare the agenda, I want to make sure that completely aware that it is, number 2, the energy enhancement, number 4, the shade awnings for Maricopa Wells, number 5, the shade structures, number 7, the carpeting, and number 8, probably not, Dr. Marshall, Mr. Roush, Mr. Brubaker, can that be accomplished? Yes, she's shaking her head desperately. Yes. And I will go ahead and put number 8 as well on an action item.
Can't we just do them all as action items? I
Yep.
don't know if we can. Yeah, we can't
Yep.
separate it. Let's just bring them all back as action items. Okay.
All right.
Then we can, yes,
Okay.
yes.
MUSD facility use fees.
Okay. Let me gather my notes. First of all, I would like to recognize our churches that are represented here tonight. I know Living Waters, Lady of Grace, and our Church of Celebration, yes, are all here tonight in expressing concern over our facility use increase. So I do want to give you some background to that. First of all, as you looked at our previous information that was given to you in former packets for comparisons, you had comparisons for specifically our Performing Arts Center. And you look at the amount of students/capacity in those buildings, you look at when they were built, and unfortunately, there isn't another performing arts center in Maricopa to compare it to. And so we were fairly limited to what we could compare that to, and we feel like we did a fairly good job in making those comparisons. I am very cognizant, as we all are at Cabinet, and I think our community is very aware that we are all products of the economic downfall right now. And as you look at Maricopa and the economic development and what we're seeing as a trend, we are starting to recover slightly. But that recovery is not going to be within the next 5 years. And we're very fortunate that we have many opportunities and businesses coming in. I mean, we've looked at Banner, we look at our Intel expansion, so there are many opportunities. However, when you look at our beautiful facilities, we have to continue to keep them beautiful. And it's a philosophy that I heard also in the Budget Committee that I would like to share, and that is when you have great schools, and that does include our facilities, they're the best advertising that you can have. Your teachers and your facilities are some of the best advertising that you could ever have. So with that said, we did propose some recommendations, and the beautiful thing of having a governing board and having open meeting is that we do have the opportunity to discuss, and we do have the opportunity to look at what is best for not only our students, but the entire community. Looking at your vision statement, our vision statement, it's Maricopa Unified, a community dedicated to student success. I do know for a fact that many of our students and families are members of these churches, and it's a vital role that our churches play in the community to provide education in an area that we are not allowed to because of our church and state laws that we have to follow. So a thank you to our churches for what they provide to our students and our families. With that said, we did provide some proposals for your information and for fees. As you know, the governing board does not approve fees. However, we have a very open communication with the board, and we do value the opinion. And I know that we have varying opinions on the board, and that's what makes our board wonderful. So with that said, I am going to provide an opportunity for you to ask questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those.
Awesome.
Mrs. Coutray.
I'm glad we did comparisons, but I do have to agree that, some of these comparisons, I understand for the Performing Arts Center, but as far as the school, the classrooms, the multipurpose rooms, I would like to see, before we make these changes, to look at our charter schools in Maricopa to see what their rates and what they're charging. I agree that we cannot continue to rent classrooms for $2 an hour. That doesn't even cover the utility costs. And just like your home, you can't walk into one room and turn the air conditioning on for one room and not, a portion of your house. And so we need to make sure that we're not losing money. We still need to be good community partners, but first and foremost, the decisions need to be made what's best for our students, and we are here to educate. And as we can provide facilities for our community organizations at a reasonable rate, that's great. But I would like to see some comparisons of what else is being charged in Maricopa. I did try to contact the 2 charter schools this afternoon, and unfortunately was not able to get through to them to get the rates. I have talked to other community members who have tried to rent facilities at the other charter schools. Legacy actually charges a lot more than what we do. And Pathways is a little bit more comparable, a little bit cheaper on the bigger room, but not so much on the classrooms from what I heard. But I cannot verify that information. So, but I really would recommend staff to do this. I would also recommend staff that when they go about to do this, communication is huge. And we have a small community, and it doesn't take much for the word to get out. This was this was affecting a lot of people. And I think we did, as a district, I think we did a poor job of communicating this out there. We need to gather their input. I'd like to see their input, but if we're going to do this, we need to make sure that we notify our stakeholders. And we need to make sure that it's a fair increase.
Well noted.
Mrs. Anderson?
Do I look like, no, I'm just kidding. Looking over them, there's a lot of information. Jumping from 2 to 10 and 20 is a very large increase. So I want to look at that and make it, even if it's just doubled, $4. I do think that I agreed with, some of the pastors. I know that the PAC and some of the newer buildings have the energy controls, and so you can actually print out what the cost is for the energy control for that day, correct?
We can. It's interesting that you ask about the PAC because we have to bring on both chillers, so the expense is quite a bit.
Right.
It's really expensive to bring that on.
But I think, in fairness, I do think that they would welcome seeing those bills, or at least knowing what it's costing for that day.
Right.
And I think that they would be more than willing to.
And I agree with you. Sorry. I had a conversation.
In all due
Go ahead,
respect,
Mr. Allen.
part of this is the demand fees too, because it starts compounding.
Right.
And with more demand and the fees that, like ED3 has, then it just starts jumping up incrementally. So it's not an exact science.
But you can give an average of what it basically costs for that Sunday, for all the rooms that they're renting.
I may even think, this is just a work study.
Right.
We just brought this as a market study for you. You asked for it.
These are just proposed, we're not making the decisions.
And I just
So
want to clarify
that to the community.
I want to clarify because the board asked us to bring some information, and for work study, we did, and it's not an action item.
Correct.
So it needs to be a win-win for the community. It needs to be, a win for Maricopa Unified School District. It needs to be a win for the community. It can't be a lose for Maricopa Unified School District and a win for those renters, because then the taxpayers are footing the bill.
Well, we're doing a disadvantage to our own community by doing that. We want to be a good partner.
These are other taxpayers that, But again, this is just one set of information. We can phase it up. I'd almost potentially proposed to maybe get a third party involved in this, not unlike what the city did. So it comes from, a non-biased third party might even be a good way to do this.
So can you bring back information on Maricopa rates of other buildings that are, I know what the commercial rate and that is, but, and then also what it costs, a basic cost of what the energy cost is for some of those rooms.
Well, we'll try. It's really hard to get an exact.
Well, not on all of them, but the ones that have the energy controls.
And I would like to interject right there. I know that I had a conversation this afternoon with Pastor Matt, and the one thing that we want to be within the district and continue to strive towards is very transparent. And anything that we do within our business department is public record. And so I think that maybe, and I'm bridging the communication right now, I think the disconnect is that the way that it's billed and bundled, that it's very difficult to separate it out. And the last thing that we want to do is put off that a feeling like we're hiding something. And that's the last thing that we want to do. I really do want to recognize that Marva Nab, who is our facility guru of the district, puts in hours trying to make sure that everything has been scheduled appropriately. And she has spent hours doing comparisons for the district and looking at other sites. And so none of these comparisons were done without doing those comparisons. The other thing that I would like to recognize is we have, of course, our life cycle costs, your supplies, your materials, your energy. We also have our maintenance that goes into that. And I'm going to say this very lightly. As a building principal, a former building principal, I will put, one of the concerns that we always had was after the Sunday use or after the Saturday use or even the evening use, that the classrooms weren't taken care of the way they should have been. And so is a district administrator that's trying to balance these two, there really are two courts, because when you contact a principal and say, can we use your room, and it hasn't been taken care of or things have been missing, it's really hard to say yes to the community. And so know that we're continuing to work through as that communication goes. We are, again, very cognizant of our economic state and want to be open to the community for that. So we will do our comparisons as well.
Dr. Conley, I have one other question. A lot of these churches came up and said contracts were coming up. Are these rates, are we going to be able to put the rates in place in time for these contracts? Because if you're looking at raising the rates, when does that have to be done?
And I'm just going to speak in that, I'm going to look at Mr. Roush right now. Not make eye contact.
Well, again, nothing's written in stone. You know, we can raise the rates anytime during the, or lower the rates anytime during the year. You know, and I think it is behooves us to give quite a bit of time to do that. It's a good idea. So it's not written in stone that we have to do July 1. We could continue with the same rates and do something in August, do something in September. We just put out another packet of information. And I want to again compliment Marva Knabb, because she does a tremendous amount of work and a bang-up job on this. But it is a lot of work. And when we talk about life cycle costs, those are things that aren't really, those are kind of hard to define. But every building, for instance, if a building is a 50-year building, there's a life cycle cost of a roof, there's a life cycle cost of carpet, of everything, and you know, that's why it'd be nice to work with a third party to see what they come up with on this.
Well, some of the pastors have offered to be a part of that conversation, and maybe that could take place since it's not urgent.
And I expressed this again to Pastor Matt today when I spoke with him. I do know that in the past there has been the community input, and they specifically had that. It would be critical to include all of the factions that are involved in this. But to answer your question, Ms. Coutre, when the contracts for the year, when are those contracts, Ms. Knabb? Okay. Okay. New contracts typically 1st of June. I'm just going to reiterate to what she said without her microphone. She has not sent them out as of yet, but she would need them back by July the 15th.
So what's our obligation with these contracts if we're not committed to rates?
They're really facility use agreements is what they're called, and it's they're specifically, I think we gave you a little bit of packet of information, but it's
ensuring the other insurance waivers and
insurances, make sure, you know, there's some agreements on how the facility is to be used, and then the fee schedule is what it is, and there's some, you know, the certificate of insurance is provided, you know, an application fee, you know, and they sign that are going to be responsible for certain things that we do. So,
but we're not obligating ourselves to provide that space for the next 12 months.
There's a time period. We could put a scope of time on each of these facility rentals. Yeah, we could say it could be for the next 2 months. It could be for, it's not obligated. I mean, it is. So what we could do is even on the scope of work, say the fee rate structure will be the same until the board chooses to, or the board or the school district.
Not the board.
Excuse me, the school
But I
district.
still think they're going to want a date. I don't think they're just going to sign a contract without knowing.
Why don't we have our expert in
Well,
SNAP come on up?
it could be, we could put it out for 2 or 3 months and.
Okay.
So as they currently stand, it's for 12 months, but the rate can change.
Go ahead.
On the facility packet, it's usually from July 1st of this year to June 30th of next year. The ones that rent all the time, like the church, I send those out, and it's a year agreement. But it also says it can be revoked at any time if, something occurs, but it is for a year, to answer your question.
But we have the ability, and presumably they have the ability to.
Exactly.
To cancel it at any time.
Correct.
With how much notice?
Correct.
Any notice?
I don't believe that says anything about a notice in
Okay. And is there a first right of refusal for all these folks so that they maintain the same space if they want in the upcoming year? Or how does that work? Do you put them all in the pot and you get to pick and choose?
If someone
churches
else had requested that space, since they're already in the space, would they get that space since they already have it?
How we've done it in the past is, of course, with the city, the IGA, they get the space first, then the church, and then anyone after that. So the churches may sometime during the year come to me and say, I need to add another room, so we'll just have them sign another facility request and attach it to that facility packet.
What if, for example, multiple churches wanted the same multipurpose room?
I only have one church per school, so we never let a second church in there.
So do they have first right of refusal in perpetuity then? Or
If there were 10 churches that wanted the 9.
can Church
how
B
would
say,
you
hey, I want
accommodate?
where Church A is? Or any other use, it doesn't have to be a church?
It doesn't say that in, so I'm not really
Okay.
sure
I
how
think
it did
I
that.
think those are some things that we need to,
Yeah.
as we do this, we
This
need to look
packet is
through.
really, this is the packet from years ago when Mr. Kasparian had done it. It's never changed, so you might want to look at and renew that even.
So do we need to bring that back as an action item before we even send them out?
And I don't believe that's
No,
actual.
the packet.
It's not a, it's not a,
It's not a-
Okay.
it's not a duty
Okay.
of the board.
We can
It's-
offer recommendations to the staff to look at
It's not a
improving
And
contract.
our...
we could go, and we could put a scope of 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, so we could put a scope of 3 months on it.
But we don't need to because there's an out clause for both parties, right? Ms. Burnett, thoughts?
I just had a question about the contracts and if there was a fee associated with it in the contract. Do they currently pay a fee now, the churches or whoever is?
For the
And-
actual contract?
Well, whatever-
Yes, there's a contract fee that they have to pay, correct? $20. Is that the
For-
question?
It's an application fee for the year.
Just, that's all they pay?
For the application fee, yes. Ms. Osborne, do you have something to add to this conversation? Okay. I love you.
I would, in advance of my questions and comments, I want to thank Dr. Conley and staff for bringing it up to the board and giving us the opportunity to give you our 2 cents. I appreciate that. On some of the these line items, like for example, the custodian on the Performing Arts Center, our recommendation is $10 an hour. Are we taking in consideration benefits and applicable overtime and all those sorts of costs as well when we're looking at what our costs are for labor?
If you can, there's, for a custodian, it could be a regular fee, or if there's somebody on the campus, we may not even have to charge. If it's Saturday, it's a different fee. If it's Sunday, a different fee. And we cover our costs for our labor. So yes, we cover our costs for our labor.
The answer is yes.
So the benefit costs are covered.
In that $10 an hour?
Well, it's not just, that's just one part of it. It's $10. Actually, it's that, didn't come on here, but it's 10, 20, up to $25, depending on the day. And we do cover our custodial cost right now. For instance, if it's a Sunday, it's 20.
Okay. When you guys are taking the next crack at this, will you look at Performing Arts Center fees, Class 2, under custodian? Recommendation $10 an hour is what I'm looking at. So just verify that that's consistent with what you're thinking it is.
Yeah, I think that was an error.
What was that, Aaron?
That number was an error. It was supposed to be 10, 20, or 25, depending on the time.
Okay.
So I apologize for that.
I got several comments that aren't in no particular order, but one is it relates to the involvement of the pastors and the community in this process. Certainly, thank you very much for that offer. The more that we can engage folks, especially the stakeholders who are directly involved, the better off we are. We have to be cognizant of the fact that there are inherent biases, right? So we need to make sure that we're making objective decisions. So there are tens of thousands of stakeholders that we have that aren't here at this meetings and don't belong to the churches that we need to represent as well. I suggest that with that once you've gotten the 2 cents and the feedback from the board, that you take that in consideration as you move forward in making your final decisions on this. I don't need or necessarily want you guys to do more homework for us and bring it back. You're just giving us the opportunity to give you our feedback, and I think we can do that tonight. There's some discussion about the comps that we put together. I think we did a good job at that. There may very well be some opportunities to tweak and improve that if we incorporate local charter schools or whatnot. But I'm of the opinion that we figure out what the market is, what the comps are, and that's our number. I think that there is a lot of merit in the discussion about the timing of this, and for us to, putting our customer service hat on, for us to ram this down our stakeholders' throats in such short order, it certainly would have a drastic impact on their budgets and how they operate. So you might consider a phased-in approach, but with the ultimate goal of getting us to market. And if it takes, a year or 2 or 3 to get there, so be it. But let's be cognizant of what we need to do that's fiscally responsible for the district and all our taxpayers, as well as for our current partners that lease the space. There was a comment in Call to Public about the backup for this item not being online. Assuming that's the case, we apologize for that. That's not intentional. And Dr. Conley, if you would see to it to make sure that not only in the future are we making sure we get all the applicable information online, but also put up this information for this meeting that's not, if whatever's not on there, so folks have access to it. That would be great. As I mentioned, I'm very sensitive to the impact this has on the folks who are using our facilities. I don't take as much credence in the argument, however, that since we've been paying X all this time, that it's unfair for us to now have to pay 2X, 5X, 1,000X. I think that we have, by and large, been giving our facilities for close to nothing, and I think all the churches, most of the churches and other organizations who have been using those would probably admit that. So I think that while we need to be sensitive to the impact of significant raises on their budgets and their timing, I don't think we ought to be making decisions on what's fair based on what we've done in the past. There was also a reference to our policy, and we just want to make triple sure that what we're doing with our rates is consistent with our policy, and if we need to alter our policy to accommodate or whatnot, then we ought to look at that. We might also think about, as it relates to the Performing Arts Center, given that it is a performing arts center, and one of the ancillary benefits of that is hopefully building a performing arts community here in Maricopa that everyone can benefit from. Maybe have an exception to the rule, if you will, whereby a nonprofit that is within the performing arts realm would have access at a significantly discounted fee, once a year or something along those lines, so that they could have an annual recital or something along those lines. And then my final comment relates to the suggestion of hiring a consultant to help us with this. If we have a consultant who would like to volunteer their services, terrific. I think we're perfectly capable of doing the research as we already have done and figuring out what the market is and working with our constituents to figure out how to get from point A to point B. If we're just going to hire a consultant so that we've got somebody else to blame and somebody else to point to, I don't think that's a good use of our funds. And I think we can do a bang-up job as we've already well on our way on our own with the help of others here in the community. So, okay, 4 cents.
That was 10 cents.
So, any other comments or feedback?
Nobody got it. That's okay.
So again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide input, and good luck.
Moving on. Thanks. Remember, I'm on vacation in 5 days.
You're not counting down or anything, are you?
Okay, next item, I'm killing you guys with work sessions and study items or work session information items. Next is an update on our property. I did provide, as far as verbiage, that we are now faced with 3 choices. And Mr. Bartle and I am going to just share a conversation that we've had. This is really one of those situations, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And we're somewhat in a catch-22 because we want to make sure that we're maximizing our resources in the district. We want to make sure that we're offering opportunities for our students, but also possibly as a mean for some financial support. So when we look at the Rancho El Dorado land, we are, and I'm looking for my actual description, so I apologize. We are now faced with really 3 basic possibilities. We can sell directly to a municipality, which would be, for instance, the city of Maricopa or someone like that. We can use it for our own good, for our own benefit within our own organization, or the governing board can approve to place on the election ballot for voters, and we have to get their approval to sell to a non-municipality. I know that Mr. Bartle has requested that we would like to see really what ideas are out there for this land, but at the same time, when we do a request for any type of purchase, we have to have a very specific scope of work. So it's hard to say what ideas do you have out there and still fall in line with our business procurement laws of providing a scope of work. Options for the board.
Okay. President Brown, I have a couple questions. Do we even know that even if we go to vote and we sell this land, we don't even know that that money can be used for our budget? It may have to go back into our debt. Do we know that? Do we know how this money can be used even if we do sell it?
It was my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that with us doing the upfront research, that this is ours and we can use it accordingly. However, is that not correct?
I don't know.
No, it's pretty Arizona revised statute, and it maybe behoove us to have Curtis Chipman come here, because we can sell it, but it's kind of a formula driven with the ARS law. There is a law that says that took into place in 1997 that says that you can't go into the maintenance and operation fund. So you can't go there. It can, though, go to unrestricted capital or capital. It's a little bit complex. There's a percentage if you fall within a certain amount of your debt service. It's kind of a formula, and it's almost if A, B, C, D. And we'll forward the information on from Curtis Chipman to you, and then I think it'd be behoove us to have a conversation with Curtis, because he really is the expert in this field. again, if we were to go out for request for a proposal, it would be, we couldn't sell it. So the one thing that we could do is go out for request for information.
Yeah.
But, and we could do that. So, but that's non-binding also, and you know, you could come back, the board, or excuse me, the voters could go ahead and give permission, and that particular potential buyer would say, no, I'm not going to buy it. But I think it is a little bit complex, and I think that it's worth studying just a little bit with the uses, because it potentially could all go to debt service, depending on the formula.
So I guess what we need is clarification from the attorney.
Yes.
Before we choose, we need clarification as to if this does sell, what can the money be used for?
Right, and
So
we
it
have
needs to
time,
come
we have
back.
till August 8th, so, you know.
Number 5 on the staff report says, "A district must make a decision to negotiate with governmental entities or go to election. If we want to put on the ballot, we need to do so by August 8th. So we have to put on the ballot to ask the voters for approval to go through the process of selling.
Yes.
Not, we go to the voters with, hey, here's an option or options that we are looking at to sell the property. Do you approve us to do that?
Right.
So we would have to go through the expense of getting voter approval, and they have no idea what they're approving other than us selling the property. We could sell it for $1, and they're approving yes or no, a blanket yes or no, that would give us the ability to do that.
Correct.
Unless a municipality buys it. Okay, so do we know if anybody's been interested from a municipality standpoint?
And even so, the whole goal here is to find out what our, the highest and best use of the property is, right? How we can maximize our value. So even if we had a municipality that was interested in it, we have no idea how that compares to what interest might be out there from the private sector. So how could we make that decision without at least soliciting that information, right?
But if we don't put it out to vote, we can't put it out until next year if it doesn't go this year. Because only these type of, if my understanding was correct, only this type of stuff can happen in the August election.
Well, I think, talking with the Pinell County Election Office, I think you can put it out to vote at different times when they have their election process. It just so happens that I think the November election would be the least expensive to do it at. Otherwise, we'd be paying a little bit more because we wouldn't share the election costs. And that's what they were telling me, so.
So a couple items of clarification that we'd like to have. One is our ability to use the funds that we would generate and any restrictions thereof. And also, if you could triple check the process in terms of us going to the voters and asking them for the ability to sell the property. And maybe we can get some language from other districts who have done this and see what that looks like. And also, if you could get a sense from other districts who have done that, I have no idea how that plays out to voters, right? It seems to me to be so nebulous that who knows what the results are. So if 90% of the time it gets shot down, then that's worth knowing. If 90% it's approved, then something along that's not worth knowing too. So.
There was in Pinell County a school district that recently went out and did the same thing. We could probably go out and ask Maricopa County Elections Office to get that information.
And when would you like to have this information? As soon as
Next,
possible?
yeah, if we can do it the next meeting.
27th.
And then, because we would have to make a decision by the July meeting.
So that would also be the information from the attorney of how this can be used. And when can we go for an RF, is it our request for information? We can do that so can you bring it on the next agenda to request that you're asking us? We can't make any decision, this is just information.
Yeah, I don't believe we have to even ask your permission to go for a request for information. We can just go ahead and do that.
So that...
Right, because we're not obligating the board to anything, so...
Okay.
Or the school district, so...
Okay.
Not, so we can go out and, through a process, do a request for information.
And if we had more time, that would be a valuable exercise, because if we found out that there is no interest, well, then that makes the decision pretty easy. I don't know how we could accomplish that before we would make this decision, in the middle of June. So, but the more information we have, obviously, the better and more informed decisions we can make. So, thank you. Any other questions on that item? Thank you, Mr. Roush. Dr. Conley?
The last item on the work session is an update to the budget information. You did receive a cover sheet with some information. In our last meeting, just as a recap, we were asked to go back and look and relook at other options to provide even a 1% type of increase to our teaching staff. I know all of you know that we've had the loss of the override, our enrollment, our 2-year grant ended with auction, and of course, we do have some other federal education grants that are ending of about $450,000. In the original, in the previous spreadsheet that I had provided to you, there was some information that we have now reworked, so it's a little bit clearer, and that's what I provided to you. If you look at the bottom of your spreadsheet, there is roughly $100,000 that was removed because we had originally put that amount of money in from our funds that we would have received from our energy enhancements if we had done the full project. So now that we're going to look at just doing a pilot, that would be about a $40,000, hopefully $40,000 increase. So we did take that $100,000 out of the budget that we had tentatively planned. One of the areas that I know will come up in our discussion of this item was all-day kindergarten, and so we did reflect the amount there of what all-day kindergarten would be.
Questions, comments?
Questions? I do know that as part of the Budget Committee, and if you haven't been a part of the Budget Committee, I would recommend that you do so. But the Budget Committee, when we were looking at transportation, we're reimbursed for about $2 million, correct? The transportation, that's what we're reimbursed from the state.
$2,390,000.
Okay. So is the transportation department staying within that budget? That was one question the Budget Committee had.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. So then the other question that the committee had, or proposal, was looking at tuition-based kindergartens. So, and I know that I've requested that to be on the agenda, and I still haven't seen it. I know that time is running out.
We did receive,
So-
after the meeting that you and I had, I did go, along with great help from our cabinet members and Ms. Garcia, we did look at what our neighbors are doing, and unfortunately, I did leave that spreadsheet in, so I'm going to do it off of memory. What our neighbors for tuition-based full-day kindergarten versus free full-day kindergarten. Our neighbors to the north, Kyrene, Chandler, is free full-day kindergarten. Pathway, and Ms. Roden is one of our specialists too that's looked into that. So Krista, please make sure that, get the microphone.
Leading Edge is AM, and they have an enrichment opportunity for the afternoon, so they do have para support. It's not a certified teacher. Legacy is half-day, and Pathways is half-day. Casa Grande runs a tuition-based. They currently have, I believe, close to 800 kindergarten students. They service 50, 2 classrooms full, and those 2 classrooms have been successful. However, it doesn't touch a lot of their students.
Florence was a free kindergarten. It's free full-day kindergarten, but it's first come, first served, so they do have a capacity to that. J.O. Combs was tuition-based full-day.
So
I'm
we
missing
can't,
one.
I mean, I realize this isn't on the agenda item, so we can't specifically discuss it. So I am requesting again to have it on the next agenda item so that we can inform our parents and people and let them know that this is coming up.
But
I have asked for information as far as data
I do
to
have
support.
I do
So
have it. there you go.
But that's, I mean, it can come up because I know that it's not agenda-sized to talk about that. So I know that we can't specifically talk about that.
I did run the student counts based off what we have right now, and if you look at our district, first grade through eighth grade, and granted, we have anomalies where we have some classes of 35. The average class size in our district is 25, and that was based off our enrollment. Again, that is overall using stats of what we pulled. And again, you have some classes that had 40 and some classes that had 10. So there are some discrepancies. I did run some sibling reports as well, and I will have that data to you. If you look at the budget that I gave you, there is a $200,000 availability if we were to go to half-day kindergarten.
Even if the idea of getting rid of all-day kindergarten made sense, and our experts are telling us that that is a really bad idea, and I respect that opinion. We are currently at 8 weeks away from the start of the school year. We're going to be 6 weeks away at our next board meeting. Logistically, it would be an impossibility to implement such a change for this upcoming school year. I think the staff has done a bang-up job doing the best they can with the limited resources we have, as is evident by the $100,000 savings that we're not getting from the energy efficiency. The only place for it to come is positions. So we had to cut 2 more positions. So the fact of the matter is, as much as every single person in this room would like us to have the funding available to give staff raises this year, there's just not enough money to do so.
Okay, well, as part of the Budget Committee, and knowing that this community has turned down an override twice, that to me, that speaks volume that they do not support the full-day kindergarten. And each time we say, you know what, if you don't approve this, we can't do this. Well, then we keep coming back and we keep finding the money for that, and it keeps coming out of the classrooms. And I'm really tired of, what we put in at kindergarten, we're undoing by having large class sizes in 1st through 12th grade. And I know they're large class sizes because my boys are in very large classes of 30-plus kids. I know that parents are leaving the district because our class sizes are too large. So if we are really going to impact student achievement, we really need to be fair and look at all the options, and that's all I'm asking. And I have been asking for this. The Budget Committee has asked for it clear back in March. So the fact that we're this close to the school year, I can't answer that. We're here, we need to discuss it and move forward.
And, keep in mind too, and I have to say this, right now we have the K-3 initiative, where if they are not reading at 3rd grade, they're not going any further in that state law. And so when you look at what our district has done and where we are so successful at our elementary, and I'm going to say this when we see the AIM scores, I've been in a district with half day and I've been in a district with full day, and it makes a world of difference. And this is the philosophy that when we have state laws coming in and saying you're not going to move your kids on at 3rd grade, but then we're going to pull the funding and what we know is already successful, I understand that we've had to make decisions for what's best for our students. And I know in working with the preschools and making sure that we're doing everything possible.
Yeah, we're way off.
No worries, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Ms. Burnett, any more thoughts on budget?
No, we discussed, I'm sorry. I've discussed in a prior conversation with Ms. Conley about the all-day kindergarten versus the half-day kindergarten, and I'm very respectful of, the savings, and I'm very respectful of her, opinion and how that is affecting, but I do agree with Ms. Anderson that it's, somewhere down the line, if we can we even just try it, to see, because Tori's right, we're taking people taking children and we're putting them in larger classrooms and they're losing that anyway, even if they got that strong foundation in the kindergarten
We need
level.
to get off the kindergarten
So
topic.
can we request that that information be brought back? Because I would like to see the data, because that, just because they're in half-day and full-day, we need to see the data. Is it really increasing there by third grade? That data needs to be provided, so I'm going to request that that
I
be on the
do.
next.
I have the
okay.
list of reports that you've requested.
Okay, so that needs to be agendized on the next meeting,
Okay, no problem. Mrs. Coutray?
so.
Hi. I see the budget recommendations. I really do appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it. And we looked at what the cost would be for a 1% staff raise. And that's across the board for all staff.
For all staff, yes, 1% is what, yes.
What I would like to see is what the cost would be for just the teachers.
Okay. And I think that, I know that Mr. Beckett and Mr. Roush have that, I think, already available.
And as far as the energy savings, I don't know how we could have put that in there, not knowing what the exact figure was going to be. To estimate something like that without having our own district data, I think is being very optimistic. I mean, it may be that, it might have been that, we don't know. But to throw that in there to say that we've lost that, I don't agree with that. But I definitely would like to see what the budget would look like to try to put at least a 1% raise or step increases. Our teachers have gone 4 years without having this, and every year we look at the budget and we just don't have the money for it. And we've got to find a way to get the money somehow. I don't know, and I know, believe me, I know that you guys have looked over and turned over every rock, and there's not some unturned pot of gold somewhere. We put a lot of money into our professional development this year, and it's a risk anytime you put money into professional development, but it didn't keep our teachers.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I don't know if we have that pot of money that we're putting towards next year. You have to have professional development. I'm
We
not.
don't, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that, but we need to start looking at some of this other stuff, too.
Nothing's off the board at this point, so,
No, and as you know, the process, I mean, I've given you the recommendations. I
Yeah.
know that Karen and Aaron are
Oh, yeah.
working with the actual formulas for the budget, so really, it's in your court.
Yeah. No, and I do appreciate all the hard work. It's not an easy thing to do.
And I just want to say, there's no, I'd love to go in my office and pull out my drawer and
So would I.
and get a wad of money, but we're not really into that. The only way that we can do staff raises at this point, and it's the only way that we can do that, unless we truly want to shut down some buildings, is to reduce staff. That's the only way we can do that. We can't have $3.6 million of revenue losses and think that we could come up with some more money. It is just not realistic. There is no other way to do this than to cut staff.
But if we don't retain
There's
our
no other way.
teachers,
I'm
if we
sorry.
don't retain our teachers, Aaron, there won't be students here.
Yeah.
There won't be students here. There won't be the need to have the budgets. There won't be the need to have the support staffs. We are here to educate our students. That's first and foremost. That is why we're
And one of
here.
the variables in there is classroom sizes, right? So I think the staff is clear of us needing to have this conversation
Again.
in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So they can prepare us accordingly. So any other relevant comments on budget?
do we know what it would cost to provide a one-step increase for our teachers? Can you bring that? I'm sure those figures are, I don't need it right now, but can it come at the next?
So one step, a 1% for teachers only,
Yes.
and then for the all-day kindergarten,
The tuition-based kindergarten options.
the options are you either do it or you don't.
Right, but it's
So-
still, it needs to be discussed. It's never been discussed.
Okay, we do have one more item on your list, Dr. Conley, and that is the item F that we moved into the informational work study.
You were presented fees for the band instruments rentals. Let me go to that.
Actually, we weren't. I didn't see them.
Yeah, it was right here.
That one.
It was item F. So band instrument rental fees, athletic fees, extracurricular activities, and the fees were given to you accordingly.
Did these go up?
The band instrument rental fee would be a new fee.
Okay.
New fee that had not previously been in place.
In the past, what has it been? Has it just been the students having to bear the?
Thank you, Mr. Poor. Mr. Poor, Maricopa High School Band Director.
Thank you, Mr. Poor.
I'm going to talk about it from my perspective because this was actually brought up. I kind of glommed onto it and said, well, if we're doing this at the middle school, we should be doing it at the high school also. This was actually brought up by our middle school band directors, who I think actually are having more difficulties with instrument repairs than the high school is, though we do have significant needs at the high school too. As far as instruments, we have not been charging a fee for instrument checkout for students. For the small number of instruments that we provide, we don't provide instruments to every student. We do provide instruments, obviously, for every percussion student and guard member and the wind players that need them. Usually larger instruments, tubas, marching band specific things at the high school level are instruments that are provided by the district, and we have not been charging any rental fees for those. Again, that's not everybody. It's only the students that don't have their own or rent from somebody else. The high school has had a course fee for the last several years. That's $75 for the entire school year for each band student. This would be separate from that. This would be for instrument rental. That fee has gone, the class fee has generally gone to fund the cleaning of the band uniforms and entry fees into events, and then usually at that point, we're out of money. Instrument rental fee would allow us to make some repairs to instruments that take us a while to get caught up, but at least provides us some basis and some way to do it. If you compare this to what's being charged at rental stores, it's very small. Usually you'd pay about, instead of $25 a semester, you'd pay about $25 a month to rent from an instrument music rental store. So it gives us a little bit. It's not huge when you compare the cost of renting privately from a business. So that's something there. But in the past, we have not been charging anything in our repairs. We had funds my first year here, and we got everything fixed that needed to be fixed. But as the budget cuts hit and the economy got sour, the repairs have been mounting.
Now, would this mean that all instruments would be provided by us?
No.
Or you're still just targeting just those certain instruments for rental?
Those certain instruments and any that we are providing to students.
Okay.
And again, the idea of including high school in this was because they would have been doing this at the middle school, so it would then continue into the high school level.
Okay.
That's really the only reason.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Osborne.
So does that need to come back at the next agenda?
As a
Okay.
public hearing?
An action item.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we have to bring it back, let people talk about it, and then we put it as an action item?
Additional questions or comments on this? Dr. Conley, I have two comments. One is the $1 per student per year payable at registration. I would suggest you look at making that up some other way. It seems like we're going to spend more money than that just facilitating the collection of those funds.
The tax credit monies, if you look at the actual verbiage for tax credit, Mr. Roush, did you want to?
You have to charge something, and so we came up with $1. That's it's in the tax credit law. So you do have to charge something. We can't gift that. That's part of the law. So that's why we're just trying to be compliant with the law.
Item 4, principal's ability to waive extracurricular activity fee due to hardship. That's the $1 fee that we're talking about? Or that's all the fees?
That would be all fees. When you look at, and I'm just looking at actually how this was worded, the $1 minimum per student refers to the tax credit monies for us to then be able to give the tax monies back to a specific group, program, whatever that may be. And I think the actual law states anywhere from 10 cents on up. I think that's, so we took $1 and called it good. When you look at actual extracurricular activity fees, that's when you get your pay-to-play, your $75, your $50, and the principal has the right to actually waive those fees because we do have members of the community that will provide scholarships for those students.
Absent a scholarship being available, the principal still has the ability to arbitrarily waive those fees, right?
Yes.
Okay. You might think about taking away some of the subjectivity in that, so there's some consistency school to school as far as what constitutes hardship. Food for thought.
Can I have one quick question? Mr. Poor, so this is doable for your students? These are fees that you've recommended, right? The band fees? Okay.
Any other comments or, yes? Thank you. Anything else on this item? No. Thank you, Dr. Conley. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, discuss and approve personnel schedule, which includes resignations, reclassifications, terminations, non-renewals, stipends, new position requests, employment ratification, leave of absence, FMLA requests, and other administrative actions. Mr. Beckett.
President Bartle, members of the governing board, we did have a number of changes that occurred over the course of when the initial pack was put out. I want to make sure that those changes are reflected on your present sheet. Number 25, that is a resignation. Number 32 is a resignation as well. We're going to ask that number 58 be pulled from the reclassification section, please.
So you're just pulling that?
Please, yes.
Okay.
And then number 21, there was an error there after the date on the position effective. That should have been registered as a resignation as well.
Right now? He recused himself from this item. Okay. That's why we move forward. Okay. Right now?
After this.
Before we get to the executive session, I'd like to discuss it before we have another executive.
Okay, is it concerning this voucher, though?
No.
Okay. Okay, so, don't confuse me, it's been a long night. Okay. Okay, I have one question for Mr. Beckett or Mr. Roush. I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that, I looked back at our last voucher from the last meeting, and so this is the continuation of that partial payment. This says it's due June 4th, so this is a continuation. It said we owed $3,600 approximately on that voucher, so now we're paying $3,000 of that $36,000 that we owe on a year contract. For an advertising, as compared to the last budget, yes, on the last agenda. Yes. Right. So of this 3,054, how much do we still owe on this bill?
3,054.
Is there more of this contract? Is this a contract with a vendor?
This is the payment that we owe,
Right.
the 3,054.
Right.
That's what we're paying.
This is, there was an approved purchase order for a
Right.
certain amount, and there was expenses that we incurred on this purchase order, so we're paying for those expenses.
Okay, because the same item came up, I'm just saying,
It's a-
I know it's a different, but it's the
It's a
same,
different-
it
right.
says this amount was left
Right,
owed.
it has to
Okay.
be, anything that we incur as an expense, we have to receive services for. So it's not, we're paying for services.
But is this a set contract with this voucher, with this vendor?
There's not a contract. It's
There's not a contract.
There was a bid that was done, and so it wasn't not a contract. And a purchase order was, the process for school districts is then you go ahead and do a purchase order for the contract that was, or excuse me, not contract, but the bid. And so the work then, so that gives the authority for us to do with the vendor, and then the vendor provided work
Right.
within the parameters of the
Okay.
purchase order.
My only question is this last month the same, another amount? Is this, are we going to have $3,000 a month? That's my question. What is the time period?
I think this is almost, the entire PO is finished.
Finished, okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's what
So
I'm
in order
wondering.
for us to have any other expenditure with this vendor or any others, we're going to have to go through a procurement
Another-
process that meets the laws of the state of Arizona.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Okay, so is there a motion for item G?
I move that we approve expense voucher 1252.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 3, 1 excuse. All right, so do we need to make a motion to go
We
into
have to
executive
wait for
session? Oh, we have to wait for,
Bartle.
no, we have a majority. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we do. We do have a quorum. Oh, we don't have to wait for Scott.
We should wait for Scott before we move on.
Okay. So President Bartle, our attorney has advised us to move to executive session now
For legal advice.
for
before
legal
we move
advice
on to the next
concerning
one.
the previous, the next items.
Okay, was there such a motion?
Okay. I move that we go into executive session for legal advice regarding the personnel schedule.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Open session. Is there anyone who'd like to readdress item D?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the personnel schedule with removing number 68 and 58 as directed by Mr. Beckett for 58.
Any discussion or seconds?
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the personnel schedule item D with the exceptions of numbers 58 and 68. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'd like to have discussion on items 58 and 68. Mrs. Coutray,
What?
could you give us some
Discussion on
feedback as far as why you wanted to exclude those items? And
Well, 58 was actually requested by Mr. Beckett to pull from the original.
okay, so that was, I gotcha. And item 68, we're going to table that item until next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So do I need to make a motion to table number
No.
68? No, or just leave it?
No, he can just bring
make
it
it
back.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Open, okay.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item H, discuss and approve first reading of policy GCO, evaluation of professional staff members. Dr. Conley?
Good evening again. Very simple change. If you look at policy GCO, the current verbiage under measuring educator effectiveness, it currently reads, to determine educator effectiveness, principals and teachers' evaluations are to be scored as follows. 60% of the evaluation is based on classroom observations, and 40% is based on student performance assessment data. This section, measuring educator effectiveness, will take effect July 1st, 2012. The proposed changes are as followed. To determine educator effectiveness, principals and teacher evaluations are to be scored as follows. 67% of the evaluation is based on classroom observations, and at least 33% is based on student performance assessment data. This section will take effect July 1st, 2012. Some background to this. We do have legislation, as you know, that we now have to include student performance data into the evaluation. When you look at the State Board of Education guidelines and requirements, it is that the minimum amount for the minimum amount of data that you can use is 33%. That's the very minimum. And the maximum is 50%. So when we put in our pilot evaluation last year, it was set up as a 60-40. And what we realized is after going through the process, after going and working with the teachers on the evaluation design team, receiving all the feedback from the teachers and the principals, that really we're going to, and again, following, let me say one more thing, and attending all of the Arizona Department of Education summits that were provided, which were at least 2-day conferences on this proposed changes, that it is recommended that we have a strong implementation plan that's phased in, and we do have that with the timeline. And 33% of our pilot will be based then, 34%, isn't it? It's right now, ours is 34, but for policy verbiage, we went with the least restrictive
For the state
verbiage
standards.
with our Board of Education guidelines.
Comments, questions? My only comment is just on the verbiage. You say at least 33% or to give yourself some flexibility.
Yes.
I think that we need to also then say at most 67%.
And it's
you-
actually 33% to 50%.
Is what-
So that's what it should actually say, 33 to 50%.
Okay. So then the corollary to that is the 67% has to be inverted, right? You can't have exactly 67 and more than 33%.
Right.
So,
So really, so in saying that, and I'm looking at our wonderful attorney, it should say 30, just get rid of the 67% and say 33 to 50%
Student performance?
is the range. We'll come up with the verbiage, but that's the range that can be included in an evaluation. It cannot be more than 50%. At least, but not greater than 50%. There we go.
okay, so if we accepted this with the following, tell me if I'm on base here. To determine educator effectiveness, principal and teacher evaluations are to be scored as follows. 50 to 67% of the evaluation is based on classroom observations, and 33 to 50% is based on student performance assessment data.
That would be correct.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's going to have to come back for another reading.
Yep,
50 to
33 to
60.
50 and 67 to 50.
50 to 67.
Right.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the first reading with that amendment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Conley.
You're
Item
welcome.
I, approve to adjourn to executive session pursuant to 38-431.03A1. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Wait a minute. All right, you're on.
It is 10:05 and we are back in regular session. The final agenda item is to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 10:05.